In complex litigation, legal teams used to spend upwards of 15 weeks reading in on a dense case. Today, an artificial intelligence can ingest and summarize those exact same evidence bundles in a matter of minutes. Courts are not strangers to computer-generated material. We have long established frameworks to handle digital evidence, built largely around strict chain of custody protocols. Digital forensic standards like ISO 27037 are designed to trace where a piece of digital information originated and guarantee that it has been preserved without alteration. But these legacy doctrines rely on a specific assumption. The computer acts as a passive container, recording facts, while a human professional provides the contextual reasoning to interpret those facts. Agentic AI does something different. It actively selects data, transforms it, and applies comparative judgment to reach a conclusion. This means the AI is effectively performing the analytical role of an expert witness, yet there is no human on the stand who can be cross-examined about the veracity of those conclusions. Because this computation happens at speeds and complexities no human can manually reconstruct after the fact, we cannot simply audit the final output. We have to govern the environment in which the reasoning takes place. The legal industry often applies the plan, do, check, act cycle. This works for humans, who arrive preloaded with contextual judgment to interpret ambiguous situations. But force an AI into that exact loop, and the structure breaks. Without human judgment, it cannot bridge defined intent and execution. Current large language models exhibit behavior, not reasoned autonomy. They infer what they should do based on patterns, leaving their actual motivations opaque. Bridging this gap requires an architecture that explicitly represents beliefs, desires, and intentions, known as BDA. By treating what the system knows, what it aims to achieve, and its specific plan of action as separate, logically inspectable layers, we can verify the machine's reasoning path before it ever executes a task. If we fail to explicitly define intent before a task begins, we are left trying to guess an algorithm's motivations after the fact. In evidential work, that post hoc inference carries unacceptable risk. This diagram shows the traditional legal dossier, a flat 2D container for sequential reporting. To safely integrate AI, we transition to a dossier space. Inside this 3D environment, evidence, analysis, and reasoning coexist. Gathering data and explaining logic happen concurrently, remaining mutually visible. The architecture enforces this constraint through primers. These are strict structural prompts that dictate the purpose, scope, and acceptable standards before the AI is permitted to begin its analysis. By setting these boundaries up front, primers convert the AI's implicit, hidden guesswork into explicit, preconditioned reasoning. The dossier space functions as a structural condition within the analytical process, ensuring that the act of gathering data and the act of explaining it are inseparable. We map this environment using 3 independent, testable dimensions of evidential reliability. The x-axis serves as our procedural primer. This is the integrity and compliance layer, aligning with international ISO standards for digital forensics and AI management. It guarantees the AI interacts only with vector representations, leaving original hashed files untouched. Intersecting this is the y-axis, our explicit reasoning map. 5 distinct nodes appear along the y-axis, structuring logic into reasoning, observations, methods, evidence, and results. Instead of a retrospective report, Romer forces the AI to record its logical pathway permanently. Finally, we add depth with the z-axis, creating the Agentic primer, which tethers directly back to the x and y-axes. This establishes the interrogation environment. It creates a direct audit trail that tethers the AI's analytical choices back to its procedural rules, allowing professionals to cross-examine the machine from adversarial perspectives. The exact point where all 3 of these axes intersect is known as the defensibility scorecard. Defensibility cannot be determined by a single metric. A piece of AI-assisted evidence is only reliable if compliance, reasoning, and interrogation are satisfied simultaneously at this origin point. To apply this model in practice, we can first look at an AI-generated output. This architecture displays a complex legal chronology, mapping a corporate dispute. But notice the 3 distinct audit nodes overlaid on the timeline. These nodes correspond to a simple 3-question stress test that professionals must use to evaluate any AI-supported evidence. First, provenance. Show me it is real. The system must provide exportable, machine-readable logic, linking directly back to the cryptographically hashed source material. Second, the analytical pathway. Can the reasoning be reconstructed? Another competent professional must be able to replicate the exact Romer steps the AI took to reach its conclusion. Third, interrogation. Explain the connection. Answering that the system produced the result is legally invalid. The basis for any conclusion must remain explorable. If an AI platform fails to answer all three of these questions, its output lacks evidential value and requires extreme caution. This architecture has strict limitations. A structured dossier space does not replace human professional legal judgment. The entire framework operates on a zero-trust assumption. The AI functions as a supervised forensic support tool, never as a final decision-maker. This framework makes the source and influence of bias visible. By requiring intent and reasoning to be defined in advance, any deviation or prejudice becomes a target for direct scrutiny. To evaluate these constraints on live AI platforms, the Society for Computers and Law is currently conducting pilot programs using simulated evidential environments. The legal profession cannot afford to adopt new technologies based on marketing claims or passive assumptions. We have to actively architect these environments to maintain the rigorous standards that the administration of justice demands.